Hello, and welcome to Bruce World, How I See Things. If you haven't guessed it, I'm Bruce Handler. And with each episode, I plan to discuss a thought-provoking topic and, of course, share my point of view. To talk about humans and the interesting things we do, maybe teach you a thing or two, share some facts that are really true, and make you laugh at least once before I'm through. Hello, and welcome to episode 9 of my podcast titled PPD. No, not to be confused with PPE. But this episode is about parenting, praise, and discipline. Warning: if you do not have children, do not plan on having children, do not really care about children, or have never been a child, then this podcast is definitely not for you. For the rest of you who are still listening, this little episode is about modern parenting. Endless praising and pats on the back. Yelling so often they do to you, but then you participate, so shame on you. Why won't they listen? Don't you get to tell them what to do? But do you really parent them, or do they parent you? It's hard to say based on what you do or don't do. And please, please, please stop saying okay after you give them a command or two. Now, I know what I just shared is a lot to take in. And I also know that parents are going to be quick to rush in and say that parenting is hard, Bruce. What's a parent to do? You think you know all the answers? So I'll just hand my kids to you. And they're also going to say, stop with the rhymes already. Well, that I can try, but can't promise to do. But give me a minute and I'll see if I can come through. Trust me, I know parenting is hard. I can't think of any responsibility in life that's harder to do well other than maybe being a crab fisherman, an oil rig worker, or a nuclear reactor repair person. No. I know I don't have all the answers, or even half of the answers. But I may have a few things that I've read about and learned over time that just may work for you. So please give a listen and see if anything I share makes sense or not. And if some ideas are worth a try, I hope you'll give them a shot. So here's my first little bit of advice, and I don't mean to bark at you, but how can I talk about parenting without talking about puppies? Okay, so where is Bruce going with this puppy business, one might ask? Well, when people make the mistake and ask me what's the best advice I can give them to help them know if they're ready to be a parent, first I say nobody is ever really ready. But then I'll ask if they've ever raised a puppy. And if they say no and give me that, what the heck is Bruce talking about look, then I think to myself, bingo, learning opportunity, and say the best advice I can give you is to try to raise one. And if you can make it through the first 6 months without losing your mind and without returning the puppy, then you just might be ready to be a parent after all. And P.S., I'm not joking about this. Now, of course, I also warn them that puppies can be expensive to buy, although not if you get one from a shelter, which anyone getting a puppy should do. That's just my Bruce World view. And then there's the cost of the food and equipment and vet bills and toys, and yet puppies like kids cost money, so get used to it. But there's also the one cost that may get you to pull out your hair and cause you to throw in the soon-to-be shredded towel, and that's the cost that comes from destroying a thing or two. Now, what do puppies and babies have in common? And why, after having a puppy who ate a hole in my plaster wall, did I decide that in the future I would only get dogs that were at least a year old? Now, you have to admit, they both look so darn cute when you first have one. Babies and puppies, that is. I mean, if you were to ask the average person, hey, I was curious, was wondering why you decided to get a puppy, what do you think one of the main answers would be?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Time's up. They would say they are just so darn cute. They are so adorable and look so sweet, and I hear they give you unconditional love, and I'm referring to the puppies regarding the unconditional love, not the children. Well, we know that the cuteness can wear off really fast. How fast? Like within about an hour after they start living with you. And I'm talking about the puppy, that is. And they've chewed a few holes in your expensive new shoes, or ate part of the handle on your most expensive handbag, or maybe they gnawed on the leg of one of your dining room chairs, or they've pooped on the white carpet that you just had cleaned, or peed all over the groceries after you set them down on the floor for just a few seconds as you were hanging up your coat. Or they ate your iPod earbuds that you just got the other day and then vomited all over your favorite red fabric couch. Let's face it, leaving a puppy or toddler unattended for even a couple of seconds can spell DIASTER. Now, puppies, like children, are clearly hard work. They require an extreme amount of time and attention. They need to be taught what's okay and what isn't, and even at some point, with children, that is, where to go to the bathroom, and with puppies right away, where to go to the bathroom. And they will interrupt your sleep when they cry at night, or when they just want attention, or they're afraid. To raise a puppy, you need a lot of patience. You need to establish early on that you're in charge, and that they need to understand and listen to your commands. Or what happens, your puppy's going to take charge, and then you're toast. You need to teach a puppy your rules. What's okay, what isn't, by giving the right amount of praise and discipline, by being consistent in their use. And your puppy's not perfect and will make an occasional mistake or have an occasional accident, and discipline is a needed tool, but the last thing you ever want to do is be too harsh. Because overdoing it can actually cause more harm than good and lead to fear and rebellion and really bad behavior. But don't praise them to death either, or it'll become the death of you, because they'll become so needy and constantly want attention and constantly want to be petted and whine until they get it. So that's my view on the value of trying to raise a puppy before you become a parent. And I know some of you are thinking I'm barking up the wrong tree, but I shitsu you not that it's a good idea worth considering. So I'll move on, because what I just shared leads into the interesting topic of praising and discipline of our children. But before we fully go there, I want to take a slight detour and go off on just a bit of a tangent, because I want to share some super quick parenting advice that is so easy to use, you can implement it immediately and get immediate results. And it does have a connection to the foundation of discipline. So how do you like that as a teaser? About 16 years ago, when I still had hair, I read some articles which inspired me to write a letter to the editor that was published in a local newspaper. My piece was titled, "Not Everything is Okay." The reason I wrote this letter is because I thought, wow, how can two simple letters in the alphabet have such an impact on parenting? Capital O, capital K. But boys and girls, do they ever? And it shows how much easier parenting can be if we're taught the very basics of what to do and not do. And the learning here is so simple and yet so powerful. So you ready for it? Because here it comes. And you may just want to write this down. So here it is. Never, ever, never, ever end a sentence with okay when telling a child to do something, unless you want to give up on being the parent. You know, the one who's supposed to be in charge of raising their children. Because ending a sentence with okay, ? Gives the child the power to say two letters you don't want to hear from them, which is N and O. Now, did you get all that? For some of you, I'll bet you don't even realize you do this, and that you may even be a professional okayer when you talk to your kids. That possibly every sentence when you ask your child to do something, you would follow it with okay. Now, I've overheard this in action hundreds of times, and have wanted to so badly hit the parent in the head with a fry pan. Just a small, tiny 3-inch one, since I am a semi-pacifist after all. Okay, no fry pan. But I want to say to the parent, please, please, please stop saying okay, and just maybe your child will actually listen to you and do what you say. Ask those around you and be more aware when you talk to your child to see if you end your sentence with okay. Okay? Side note, and this is an important nuance that ties into ending sentences with okay. Also think about whether or not you're asking your child to do something or telling them. If you're going to be in charge, you need to tell, not ask, no matter what age they are. Asking means you are not in charge. So, throw the asking thing out the window. There's no place for it in parenting, with one exception to be discussed later, but forget I even said that for now. I know you're not forgetting, are you? Anyway, here are some simple examples of what not to do. Okay? I just had to throw that okay in there, didn't I? Anyway, here we go. Bruce, it's time to get ready for school. Okay? Don't eat those snacks before dinner. Okay? How about you go do your homework now? Okay? What do you say you go tell Johnny you're very sorry for hitting him with your cement truck? Okay? And then how often do they say nothing? Or no? Or in a minute? Or end up doing nothing? And then things escalate from there, and not in a good way. So what's the correct way to get your child to do something other than threatening or bribing them? Let's lose the okay and the asking. How about simply saying, Bruce, it's time to get ready for school. Bruce, don't eat those snacks before dinner. Bruce, it's time to do your homework. Bruce, go tell Johnny you're sorry. If you do this, trust me, it won't be long before you start regaining more control and being able to get your children to actually listen to you, especially the younger ones. And please, please, please do this in a calm but confident voice. No yelling. And don't make it sound like a military order either. Hint: say these statements in a matter-of-fact tone, like I'm using right now, and you'll be good to go. Now, this alone won't get the kids to listen to you, especially if you've been using the okay for a long time, and or if you've been making some other common parenting mistakes, most notably the back and forth Abbott and Costello arguing routine. But before we get into that section, let's talk about two important must-cover parenting topics. One, why you need to be in charge and be a parent, since your job is to raise your kids and not for them to raise themselves. And two, the topic of praise and the damage it can do. Now, why do you need to be the boss, the person in charge, the captain of the ship? Sounds old school, doesn't it? Superior, and flies in the face of all this talk about connecting with our kids and being their friends. Guess what? This friends thing, until they grow up, like until they're 18, is a bunch of hogwash, rubbish, drivel that is not supported by experts in parenting. Quite the opposite is supported for a child to feel confident, to feel good about themselves, and to feel safe. They need someone to guide them, to tell them what to do, to set the rules and expectations and structure. They need someone to respect. They need to learn responsibility and chores and pitching in and helping out and helping others and how to act and how to do things other than just play and goof around. Like helping out and setting the table, taking out the trash, helping with the cooking, the cleaning, doing dishes and laundry and caring for the puppy. Helping a neighbor with their groceries so they become more prepared for life. To become responsible, independent, confident young adults that are not dependent, not helpless without mommy and daddy. So now that we know you should be in charge, what's next? P.S. I will cover more on this topic of being in charge when you listen to my future podcast on hovercrafting parents. But what I shared will have to do for now. Now, look at me, mommy. Look at me, daddy. Look what I did. Isn't it great? Yes, ladies and gentlemen and others, moms and dads, future moms and dads, it's time to talk about praise. And I would like to pat myself on the back before we get started, just for being me. It's almost as if praise has gotten so out of hand that we are praising our kids for merely existing, for breathing. Here's a trophy every day, multiple times a day, for just being alive. Well, parents have actually become praise factories. And the production line can't keep up fast enough because it's just buckets of praise and more praise that's being produced. Now, how often does the average parent praise their child, in particular when they're toddlers and through elementary school? Take a wild guess. Try thousands and thousands of times. What an amazingly beautiful picture, Lily. What is it? What a great job you did, Billy, for not kicking the dog in the face today. London, you almost hit the ball like a pro. You just actually need to swing next time. Peter, you almost spelled that really hard word right. You are so smart. Dakota, although you got all the answers wrong on the pretest, they were kind of hard, and I know you'll do a great job if you actually consider studying next time. Billy, although you didn't make any goals and were thrown out of the game today for unsportsmanlike conduct, you look so good out there. Moon Unit, you shouldn't yell at your teacher, but you were so thoughtful to refer to her as Mrs. Brody while you were doing it. Hey, Pat, you woke up today. Nice job. Terry, you actually decided to do some of your homework. That's awesome. Now here's your reward. Here's your sticker, your toy, your sweet treat, time playing a video game. When I hear so much praise, it makes me want to projectile vomit. Blech. If you want to hear a praise craze, just go to any kid's activity, in particular any sporting event or a gymnastics class, and the praise is almost deafening. Even if the kids do next to or absolutely nothing other than show up and be told by a parent, you look great out there. There's nothing wrong with praise. You heard me. Praise can be a wonderful thing, but it must be in moderation and at the right time and in the right way. Otherwise, you're going to create a child who either becomes addicted to it and will do anything to get attention in order to feel accepted, and who will feel awful if they're not constantly praised. Or you may have a child who won't give your praise any value, even when it's really deserved, because it's so overdone on a regular basis. Constant praise sets kids up for disappointment in the real world when they get older, where they won't get nearly as much praise, like maybe 1,000,000 times less than you're giving them now. There will be a rude awakening when they find out that they really need to work hard to get it, to deserve it, and may give up easily if they don't get enough of it. At its worst, frequent praise leads to entitlement and narcissism, and turning your kids into adults who will act like brats. Pretty awful traits, don't you think? Versus getting the right type and amount of praise, which will lead to self-assurance, confidence, repeating good behaviors, and maturity. All pretty good stuff, right? So, what to praise and how? If you want a child to repeat good behavior when they do what you tell them to do, that is the absolutely perfect time to praise them, because it leads to repeating the behavior you want. Whether it's brushing their teeth, doing their chores without being told, coming to dinner without being told, or when told the first time they do these things, or when they take initiative to help with something or use good manners, when they do what you tell them to do, that's when they need the praise, and that'll motivate them to repeat the behavior. And you don't have to do this much for them to get in the habit of doing it without the praise. Catch them doing things right, acting the way you want them to, and that's what you want to praise. So again, there's no need to do this every time, just the first time, and then every once in a while, and that's enough. And here's a big one, and I mean a big one, and not one we naturally think of, and that is praise efforts more so than results. We are addicted to praising outcomes and traits, like I mentioned above. You are so smart. You are an artist. Don't do that. And the worst is to say, You're so proud of their great grades, so proud of all the goals you scored, so proud you beat the other team. May sound crazy, but rewarding the effort and how they did things versus the result will engage your children in a much more positive and motivating way. Examples. I noticed how hard you studied for that test. You really put in the hours. You really stuck with it no matter how hard you said the material was to learn. Your practice is really paying off. Your hitting keeps getting a little better because of it. I know you didn't get the grade on the test that you wanted, but you joined that study group, you've never missed a session, and it has helped to improve your grades. Well, one can write entire books on praise, so I tried to share those few things that can make the greatest impact. And if you're still listening, I'd like to give you all pats on the back and send you a trophy or two. You're just so wonderful and smart, okay? So, as you've learned, that's the opposite of what you should do. What about punishment? Well, first I like to refer to it as discipline, not punishment. Discipline is more about two important components: setting expectations or rules and making sure there are consequences when the rules are broken or expectations are not being met. And I'm blown away by parents who either don't discipline their kids at all or who administer very harsh punishments. You did not take out the garbage like I told you, so no soccer for an entire month. Are you kidding me with that punishment? And parents wonder why their kids don't listen to them, respect them, and instead rebel and just do what they want. And guess what? Kids need discipline if they're going to grow up and be able to function in the real world. This is a fact. So I'm going to share just a few techniques that can really help you parent your kids into doing what they're told, and none of these involving having to raise your voice or scold your children. For younger children, the 1-2-3 method is so effective, but it also works well for older children with some slight modifications to the consequences. Now, please listen to the most important thing I can say on this topic. The 1-2-3 method must be administered consistently, and you must follow through on the consequences. And that's step 3. If you don't, you are doomed, because your kid will push you to try to get you not to follow through if you are the least bit inconsistent and don't carry out the consequences that you stated would happen. And then your kids won't respect you, listen to you, and instead they will try to argue with you every step of the way. And obviously that can make one's life miserable. Now, for another very important point, and I can't stress enough how parents must stay calm when dealing with discipline situations, because if you want control of a situation, you need to de-escalate, in particular with tweens and teens. And I know how they can push your buttons, but you need to do the opposite of what your child does and never act like your child and never raise your voice. Stay relaxed, matter of fact. Don't ever argue back and forth, ever. Kids are going to react with anger and yelling. And if you act that way, it'll never end well over time. Now, for the 1-2-3 method of discipline for the younger kids to work, it goes like this. Number 1, Billy, stop pulling on the dog's tail. Number 2, if the behavior continues, Billy, stop pulling on the dog's tail or you'll get a timeout. 3, if the behavior continues, Billy, go sit in the chair for 15 minutes in a timeout. There must be consequences and minimal back and forth with the child, no empty threats. And it won't take Billy long in the future to figure out what happens once you get to step number 2. This also works for older children. I get a kick out of hearing parents do such a silly back and forth with their kids, which gives them equal power. Sally, it's time for dinner. Okay? Come on, I had to throw in the okay to see if you were still paying attention. So let's see how this scene may play out. I think it would sound something like this. Mom, I'll be down when I'm done texting Susie about Billy. No, you won't. Get down here right now. But I'm not done telling Susie about what happened. Get down here now, or the food is going to get cold. And now means now. I'll be down soon. And geez, Mom, you don't have to treat me like a child. I'll be down when I'm ready. Sally, we're not going to eat until you get down here. So get down here this minute. And on and on and on they go. Why does Sally do this? Because she knows she might get away with it. Maybe not every time that she argues with her mom, but at least some of the time she knows she'll win and get her way. To me, it's like an Abbott and Costello comedy routine. Because the discussion just goes round and round and round in circles, and the yelling begins to get louder and louder and louder. And instead of ending at 1, 2, 3, what happens is Sally's coming down to dinner will likely turn into an out-of-control argument. And then maybe she even refuses to eat. And think of all the emotion and drama and anger and how that impacts the relationship with your kids. All over what? Asking your child to come down to dinner. Now, this is going to sound too easy. But here it is. You need to set expectations, but be reasonable. Like give your kids a warning before dinner time, or have a set dinner time so they know in advance what it is. They know what to expect and when to wrap things up. Now, if you want to use a tried and true approach to handling situations like this, in fact, let's go through how to handle this situation. Sally will be eating dinner in about 15 minutes. That's 7 o'clock. If the time comes and goes, Sally, the 15 minutes is up, so I expect you to join us for dinner now, and then you enter the consequence right there. And older kids don't like privileges taken away. Example, Sally, come to dinner or you won't be able to see Susie this weekend. Or, you'll have to give me your phone until tomorrow. Or, you'll not get to have your favorite pizza when we order pizza tomorrow night. Don't engage in punishments that are really drastic. You don't need to. An example, your child has been practicing for a dance recital for months and you say, sorry, you can't go to the recital. Really? All because they didn't want to come to dinner on time? You're trying to create habits so your kid knows what to expect. 1, 2, 3. I expect you to come to dinner. 1. If you don't come to dinner, there'll be a consequence, which is X. That's 2. And then if they don't come to dinner, well, here's the consequence. 3. It's that simple. Now, here's a more sophisticated type of discipline, and it works. But it takes time and a little patience. And I wish more people would try this. Because it would go like this. So Sally says, I'll be down when I'm done texting Susie. Then you don't respond. You just go eat. Now, she may come down to eat when the food is still out, or maybe not. Maybe it's put away. And if she wants to eat, she can warm it up herself. Don't reward her for not listening by warming it up for her. Then at some later time, it could be a day, it could be a week, and she asks you for a favor, and you say no. Mom, I want to borrow the car Friday and see some friends. Your response will be no. Then explain that the other night you asked her to come down to dinner and she didn't listen, and this is the consequence. Now, this will freak your kid out, especially your teenagers, because now they're never going to know when the consequence may occur, and that takes a lot out of their control. They like predictability, and you've totally taken that away from them. So now you're in the driver's seat. You're in charge. Lastly, sometimes your kid has every right to be angry, upset, emotional. Try to find a way to help your child, not punish your child. Sally, the bus will be here soon. Let's go. But Mom, my hair looks awful. Sally, let's go right now. You need time to eat your breakfast before the bus gets here. You're not listening to your child. Respect them, and they will respect you. If you go talk to your child, see if you can help them with their hair, or just hang out a bit when they try to fix it. Maybe there's nothing you can do other than something that is so important. The key ingredient to parenting, in particular teenagers, when they get upset, is to at least show empathy. Sally, I'm sorry your hair is not looking like you want, and I can see how this is upsetting you. I can totally understand it. So you can take a few more minutes to work on it, but then I do need you to get on the bus. Or you can possibly offer, if you have the time, to drive her to school, and that will go an incredibly long way. When your kids don't want to follow some instructions, it's because sometimes they're really upset about something. Don't get into a pissing match when your kid just needs you to listen and show empathy. And it won't be long before they start listening to Mom and Dad. And now for a perfect way to bring this episode to a close. But I do promise to be back to talk about 2 more important parenting topics: hovercrafting over your kids, and the other has to do with girls and women and body image, because it's becoming an epidemic, and that's no exaggeration. So the last tip on parenting has to do with giving choices. You can still be the boss, but give your kids some say-so, even the young ones, by giving them a choice. If you have a picky eater, for example, you ask, do you want a green vegetable, like peas or broccoli, or do you want corn? Do you want to empty the dishwasher or the dryer? Do you want to do your homework now or right after dinner? Just a little involvement in decisions goes a long way. Well, that was obviously a lot to take in. And hopefully you'll not poo-poo on what I've just spent this time discussing with you. I have actually seen it all work firsthand. And trust me, it'll make your life as a parent much easier, less stressful. But change won't happen overnight or in a day or two. But try it for a while and see your children behave much better than they currently do. And at the end of the day, you'll end up with a grown-up child who acts like a fine young adult. Okay? So thanks for stopping by, and thanks for listening, if you're still awake. I hope you were entertained, maybe learned something new, smiled a time or two, and here's to having at least an okay day. And if you don't, that you have what it takes to make it through. This is Bruce from Bruce World, the way I see things, and I hope you'll join me for my next episode.